Yesterday I saw the new Guardians of the Galaxy and it surpassed my expectations. For me to talk about this film, I have to give you a quick rundown as to where I've been when it comes to the Marvel franchise. The last piece of Marvel content that I ended up seeing was Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and when I walked out of it, I remember just saying to my sister, what have I just watched? And all round I thought the plot was really weak, most of the movie all round was a bit trash from the story, the characters and the CGI. I might force myself to rewatch the film just so I can give you a full video explaining why I dislike that film so much. But anyways, I basically didn't end up seeing anything after this point as I was really disappointed all round with everything we were getting from Marvel and was just fed up. From the homework assignments of having to watch all of the shows to even know what's going on, to the forced politics being shoved down everyone's throats that kind of just breaks the escapism of why you're going to see these films in the first place. Because of those two things, I just got fed up and wasn't really interested in seeing anything else from them, and if I'm honest, I wasn't even necessarily interested or hyped in the first place to go see this film. I'd heard some good things all round which kind of just made me a little bit like, okay, I'll give it a shot more than anything, but I wasn't really intending to go see this film originally. But if you want my thoughts on this film before any form of spoilers come into place, I'd definitely say it is genuinely a good film, and if anything, I'd say if you've been waiting for a good Marvel film for quite a while, this is definitely the one. It doesn't have anything that made the others awful recently, and it definitely is a better load of fan service than any of the previous ones. So let's jump into the spoiler realm of this video, the plot, the CGI, the characters, and my main bit of criticism around this film. The first place to start is going to be the plot of this movie. This movie is definitely way more emotional than any of the previous films. The story revolves around Rocket and his history. They did a really great job in fleshing out his character and backstory, and it's definitely way more emotional. We end up seeing him with his friends who were also worked on in the same way that he was, and we end up getting shown a rough idea of his history and the High Evolutionaries' work. During this film, we have three primary character arcs. You have Rocket's acceptance of who he is, Quill's acceptance of what he's been running from this entire time, and for him to stop trying to change Gamora. And then lastly, you have Drax, who goes from being the destroyer to the father as they give that payoff within the film. This is also a lot darker of a movie in comparison to what we've had come out recently, especially with the flashbacks into Rocket gave me a little bit of Winter Soldier vibes of wanting to just kind of tell a more serious toned story within the realms of Marvel. At times, with some of the animal stuff, it was actually kind of hard to watch, if I'm honest. I was really surprised they were able to get away with this being within the film, especially for like a 12A film. I thought, to be honest, getting away with even CGI animal torture seemed a little bit odd when you consider like what some of the restrictions are for things that are 12A. I think they did a really good job though in giving all of the characters a moment to shine in this movie. It's something that many people would say is really hard to do, especially juggling a load of big characters around, but I'd say every single time James Gunn has directed a Marvel film, aka the Guardians films, he's always done a really good job of not in a way of, just giving one massive character all of the effort and just sidelining the rest. CGI wise, I'd definitely say this was one of the best ones that they've had in quite a while. It felt as if they chose to genuinely give this movie a bit of time for a change instead of, rushing everything out and forcing their CGI teams to get everything done as quickly as possible. Maybe for a moment they decided to listen to people instead of, making all of the films really rushed and having to get everything done within the space of like 6 months, maybe that's what helped it a bit. There is also this other part of it which could be the case that James Gunn as a director wanted it to be correct before being released instead of it being rushed. There is also that as a possibility. However, there is one scene in particular that I think was a little bit off within this film, and this is the moment that they're all fighting up against the High Evolutionary right at the end. They chose to add a load of close-up shots that, to me, just made it seem really hectic for the space of about 15 seconds, and it wasn't really feeling cohesive in any way. It just kind of was being really just over the top and hectic. It was just really close cut angles all the time, cutting between each person instead of, what they would do within other films where they would at least give you multiple shots of kind of like the same fight going on. I don't know how to explain it necessarily outside of that. You'll understand what I mean when you watch the film, that there is this one particular fight right at the end where it just kind of seems a bit just over the top with how close up everything is. Now I want to talk about what I think is the weakest point of this film, which is the pacing. Now I was fine originally of them jumping straight into the action. It did feel a little bit odd at first, but it was kind of okay. I think when you've had enough of these Marvel films where it's kind of like the slow build up to some action, you're kind of used to it, so this was a little bit of a change of pace. However, if I was to explain this entire pacing, here's how I would do it. We go from literally 0 to 100 within the first 5 minutes, then it goes down to 20 again, then it goes all the way up to 100 again once they've been captured and they're having to fight within the organic thing that they're having to fight within. Then it drops all the way down to about 20 again, it then ramps up until Groot and Quill escape, and then drops all the way back down to being slow again, then ramping up one more final time for that big end fight. It felt really odd. That's kind of the best way I can explain it. It just seemed as if the pacing wasn't, done in a way that was to actually make big moments, or at least the end fight seem more of something of value. It just kind of seemed okay, cool, big fight, dip, big fight, dip, big fight, dip, big fight, dip, over and over again, instead of doing what most films would do, where you would kind of have the mini kind of boss fight in a way where it's kind of building up a little bit, then the heroic dip of, okay, we need to now regroup, rebuild, and then the final fight. It seemed a bit off. So yeah, my overall complaint when it comes to this film is the pacing, which in my opinion wasn't amazing. It kind of reminded me of The Last of Us 2. If anyone's played that game, you'll understand what I mean by the pacing of that game. All round, it kind of seems all over the place. Now, is the movie unwatchable? No, not by any means. I'd definitely say it's a lot better than whatever they've released recently. I'd say that this issue of pacing probably is more on me than it is these movies, just because I think I've become more accustomed to over the last year of watching more films that are 90 minutes long instead of what I was used to for ages, the 150-minute long movies like this film was. This film is 149 minutes long, which is very hard to then break it down into your 3-part segments of every single film, or at least that's how traditionally films are made into, your action 1, 2, and 3. And I think it's a lot easier to do when you've got them in 30-minute segments instead of trying to fill up 3 50-minute segments. And I think that's why you have these massive dips, which is why I think you've got all this pacing issue within this film. So no, I wouldn't say that it's unwatchable, but I would certainly say it's better than anything we've had previously. The pacing is a little bit rough at times, but all round, from a Marvel sense of, let's say, a 0 out of 10 being a Thor the Dark World, and a 10 out of 10 being Infinity War, I'd probably pop this around about a 7 out of 10, if I'm honest. It was a lot better of many of the other films. This could just be because of recent, of just recently seeing the film. That could be the reason for it, of why it's got a higher rating. I remember walking out of Black Widow thinking the film was good, and then after 2 months of having genuinely thinking about the film, I was like, wow, that film really was not that good. So you never know, it could change, but I do think the serious tone of this film definitely paid off a lot better than doing a more sillier film that you might have got within, many different films that have come out over the last 2 years, many different shows that have come out. And they also didn't shove in politics, so it's an all-round win. The darker tone worked out really well, and I can't really complain. So yeah, with that all being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't seen the film, hopefully this gives you a rough idea. Yes, the pacing is an issue for me, but like I said, it could just be an issue when it comes to me getting used to 90-minute films instead of 150-minute long films. So that could be the issue for me, instead of it being, anything to do with actually the pacing structure. But all round, I would definitely say the film is worth watching, especially if you're a Marvel fan, or you were a Marvel fan before all of the chaos within this entire moment of time within Marvel erupted. Anyway, if you guys have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, do subscribe for more content coming up in the future. The next video that will be coming out will be about The Mandalorian, not about the new season, just The Mandalorian in general. So if you are interested in that, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.